Good afternoon, Bulldog fans, and welcome to our first installment of In the Paint with head men's basketball coach Grant McMillan. Coach, welcome to your show.
Thrilled to be here, Richie. Really appreciate it, man.
I'm
about
looking
this
forward
opportunity to talk about our program and our school and everything.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it as well. This is our first installment of the show. We started coaches shows last year. We were unable to get Coach McMillan in, but this year we've been able to work it in. We've got a production area here, and our producer, director, sound guy, key grip guy, Jonathan Seaton, handles everything for us as well. So we're excited about this first installment of the show. We'll kick things off, Coach, right now at the almost midpoint, as you and I spoke before we got on air. The Bulldogs' overall record is 8-4, and they're 2-2 in conference play. You as a head coach came here 5 years ago. This is your fifth year as the head coach here at Navarro. Previously, you were a head coach at Panola for 4 years, so a 9-year resume as a head junior college basketball coach. Coach, give us a little feel as to how that feels after 9 years of being a head coach in JUCO basketball.
Well, it makes me feel really old, to tell you one thing. You know, I got the Panola job when I was 28 years old, and I had hair back then. I was young, I had a lot of energy, and I'm to be honest with you, I was completely scared to death. And we had a great opportunity there, and now when I go to media day, I look around the room, and I'm one of the older guys there. So for me, it's definitely changed. But I think the respect level for our league and our region is immense. We have one of the hardest leagues in the country, all the way from the very top to the bottom. So our league has sent 3 teams to Hutch a whole lot of times in my tenure here as a head coach. So, and we're right in the hunt of league play right now. So we're right there in the middle.
Well, there's a lot to be said about being a head basketball coach for 9 straight years as well. Being a head coach in any sport is tough, and then managing the lives of 12 to 15 men that come in for a short span. You don't have the 4 years with them. Some of them, and we talked before, and you'll talk a little bit more about it as we talk about your players, but you might have guys for a year and then they're gone, or you're lucky if you get them for 2, but that's a tough job to do.
Yeah, you know, for us it's about, I think the most important part of our job here is we have to graduate our guys, and we have to move them on. And I think junior college programs should be graded on that. I know like everybody wants to win and everything. Wins and losses are huge, but at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is how do you run your program and where do your players go? And I'll put our school, you know, but in the country as far as graduation rate and where our players have transferred to.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about your program and how you run things? You know, we were going to lead into that later on, but since you brought it up, kind of give us a picture of what it is to be a part of a Grant McMillan-led program.
Yeah, you know, I think the biggest thing is we act the right way. You know, we want our guys to act like pros and to be prepared in like every area of life. I think a big part of this is the academic side, and the fact that for all of our guys, one day the ball is going to quit bouncing, and they're going to have a job to go get. And if you have a degree on the wall, it really helps with that job. So we really stress academics, and just really, you know, being good people, playing hard and bringing it every day, being everyday guys. You know, I think our guys have a chip on their shoulder. We get guys who are usually under recruited, you know, or have transferred, and this is kind of the last chance for him. So when we recruit a player, we like to look at everything, from home life to high school career to high school grades, to obviously playing the right way, to being a good player. But I think that you win with your habits off the floor just as much as you do with your habits on the floor. And GPA-wise, we had a great term this year. It was probably one of the highest terms I've had here in my whole career. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know it's 3.0 plus. We're going to have a whole bunch of kids in the 3.0 club and the 4.0 club. So extremely proud of that. And yeah.
Coach, that's the epitome in our coaches shows that we've done in the fall leading into the spring. And with you are in the same company as all the other head coaches that are here at Navarro. It seems like Navarro College recruits and gets head coaches that not only stress academics, but it's all about the character and those essential pieces that sometimes get overlooked because you can get caught up with wins and losses and keeping a job, but you are doing far more than that with your team.
Absolutely. I think here too we have a rich history and tradition. And if you go back and look at Coach Orr, just the example that he has laid on us for a long time. I mean, he still comes to our practices. He's still involved with the program. He's a great resource for me as a young coach who's a Christian, and I can't speak enough about Coach Orr. And then also, do you have guys like Johnny Estelle, who is in the Hall of Fame. When I was a young coach at Howard Junior College, I actually looked up to Johnny. I actually wanted to be Johnny Estelle. I wanted to be at a school where I could have a chance to compete for championships each and every year and run our program like how Johnny ran it. And so it's crazy how it's all kind of intertwined. And then you throw Coach Landers in there and just the job that he did and all the championships that he's won. We have a very rich tradition here, and we have a tradition of you have to win the right way. And I think that begins all the way from the top with our president and goes all the way down. Yes, we want to win. Yes, we want to compete, but we want to do it the correct way. And I think our school has really been known for that over its history.
And you're absolutely correct. And you have some colleagues, mentors, friends that are held in high esteem in the junior college basketball world for sure. So you're right. You're falling right in line with those guys. You can consider yourself one of them, huh?
Almost.
Almost. Well, your program doesn't run only by you. You've got a couple of assistant coaches that I'd like for us to talk about and give you an opportunity to share.
Absolutely. I think for any junior college program, you have to have a good staff. You've got to have a good coaching staff. Your staff is going to spend more time with the players than you do. And you better trust them, and you better have the exact same outlook on things, and you have to be aligned. And I think that's the most important thing in any organization is to be aligned. And I have two great assistant coaches. DJ Pavlovic has been here. I'll be honest, I don't know how long he's been here. He's been here for a long time. He's an alumnus. He went to school here. Great story, actually. He was recruited here by Johnny Estelle as a manager. And he was fresh out of high school. And then they had the coaching change. Johnny went to Houston, and Coach Landers got the job, kept him. And DJ just kind of worked his way up, And when I got here, he was straight volunteer. He didn't get paid a dime. He had just graduated from A&M Commerce, and just knew how to work. And I think for him, the fact that he is extremely smart and said, okay, how can I help coach the most? And he has really carved out a niche on the academic part. And I think he is one of the best academic guys in the country. He is the reason for our GPA and our transferable credits, graduation rates, and all that. Yes, our kids do it, but he drags them there. And I mean, it's an everyday thing. I've been in that job before. It's high burnout. It's frustrating trying to deal with 18-year-old young men, but he's a rock star with that. Again, I think it's part of my job to graduate guys and to move them on. TJ is a rising star, like I said. He will not be here forever. He's going to be a great assistant coach at the 4-year level one day. And he's a big, big part of our program. I mean, he's the engine, I like to always say. He makes my job so much easier in every single area. I could talk about it for an hour. I mean, he is an absolute, he's just really, really good at what he does. And then I have another guy, Michael Biavides, who just got here in August. Interesting background. Mike has worked at some really, really good schools and some good programs and some good head coaches. From Florida, went to Miami, worked there for Jim Larinaga, who's a Hall of Fame coach, and he was a part of the Elite Eight run on the staff, so has a lot of experience there in the ACC. And then he was at FIU, which is a really good program in Conference USA. So Mike has been at that Division I level, which is where our guys want to get to. So he understands what that looks like and what it takes to get there. So he helps with that a ton.
And both of those guys are really involved in a lot of aspects of the coaching piece as well. I mean, Michael has been at a couple of universities, and, they have a number of coaches, and they've got a pecking order, so to speak. And here, I feel like he's really involved, and he's got a voice on the
I believe in
floor.
ownership. Mm-hmm. I believe in ownership, and I believe that you hire people for a reason. I don't have all the answers. I have a framework that I truly believe in. I have a process that I truly believe in, but I like to hire people because I want to hear their ideas and their opinion. And those guys have complete ownership in our program. So we meet every day about practice. We listen, throw out ideas, and it's kind of like an Army unit. Like you're kind of in there as a group together. So I have a great staff who does a great job, and it's my job to move them on, like I said. And I'm very proud of the fact that I have 3 old coaches who now work on the D1 level. One's at High Point, one's at New Mexico State, and one's at Southeast Louisiana. Mm-hmm. I have another one that runs probably the biggest scouting service in the country. And so, I think just like any aspect of your program, you're trying to move guys on. And you do that from running your program the correct way.
Yeah, your coaching tree is growing.
It is.
It is growing and expanding.
It's a shrub, but it's still growing.
Well, all right, so we've discussed your coaches there. So before we talk about your players as a coaching staff, what did you feel like going into the season? What did you expect, and how did you think things would play out for you guys?
I think that's a great question. I think we have a whole new team. So, we have 13 new players who have not ever played before together as a group, and you don't get them here until August. So August the 20th. So we start playing scrimmages in October. So it's really about trying to pick out what you want to emphasize and who you want to become, and try to play as much as possible to create the chemistry, because a big part of our sport is that chemistry, to play with each other. So we do a lot of pickup in the fall. But to answer your question, I really wasn't sure, because we got a lot of high school players, and there's always a transition from any level to the next, and there is a transition from high school to junior college. There just is. I mean, we're in one of the 3 best leagues in the country, so it's a hard transition. So you never know how long that is going to take, and our group has actually, learned pretty quickly, I think. So I think we're ahead of schedule, brand new team. We're still trying to learn our roles and our strengths, our weaknesses. But I'll say our group has been an absolute joy to work with every day. As a coach, that's huge. You don't want to dread heading down to practice. We've all had teams like that. Our team has been refreshing, has been high energized, and has been great to coach with the entire year so far.
Well, good. Okay, so that leads us into your team. This gives you an opportunity now. We wanted to take the time on our show to give you the chance to talk about your players and to talk about your team and give us a little background on everybody and everything.
Like I said, brand new team. So, and that's not crazy nowadays. Junior college is kind of a launching pad for a lot of players. I think you have to be ready to do that every single year. I haven't had to do that since year 1 as a head coach a long time ago. And so for me, it was a process that began probably from early March all the way until early August, mid-August, and trying to identify the correct players, where they come from. Okay, who's their high school coach? I think one unique part of our freshman class is 3 of them come from Hall of Fame high school coaches that have really been coached at a high level. And I think that helps. I think it helps tremendously. But as far as our upperclassmen, we only have 3. We have 3 upperclassmen. The rest are true freshmen. And Jalen Griffith is a transfer point guard from the University of Jacksonville, which is a Division I school. Great program. Played behind a lot of older kids last year. Didn't get a whole lot of burn. And he transferred, put his name in the transfer portal. We got him in June. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know if we could keep him, because I thought he would get another 4-year opportunity. So we're thrilled he's here. He's in the top 3 in the league in scoring. He's number 1 in steals. He's a smaller guard who really gets after it. He comes from an unbelievable high school program and has been coached at a high level. So he's one of our key guys, one of our older guys who's actually, been through this all before as a transfer. We have Marcus Green, who is a junior college transfer from the West Coast. He's from Fresno, California, where last year as a freshman, he averaged 11 and 9 as a true freshman. I don't care where you're playing at. That's a really good stat line. Mm-hmm. If you go back and you watch his clips and stuff, those are real rebounds. Like that's not just, rounding up. Like that he averaged 9 rebounds a game. That's real. And he really gets after it on the glass for us. And he's a leader. He's probably the best team guy that I've ever been with. His energy, but any time on the bench, he's trying to help if he's not in, really gets it. One day is going to be, CEO of a place or a company. He has tremendous leadership ability. He's been great for us. And then our last upperclassman is Matthew Nader, who is from Canada. Is a junior college transfer from a school in Indiana. Really unbelievable kid off the floor. Great academically. Played at a really good high school in the States. High character kid. He goes hard every single day on every rep. That's great for our freshmen to look at and to view. He can really hit the three, can switch all the way across the board, 1 through 5, and has been a key reserve for us in this early part of this year. I see his role kind of growing and getting more, just because he does everything the correct way that you want him to get done. And then our freshmen, I can't go through all of them, but I'm just going to choose a few. Jaden Pretty has been huge for us early in the year. He was an under-recruited kid from South Carolina, was actually the first kid that we got in our class. Jaden won a high school state championship. He comes from a great program. A lot of people thought he was a little smaller, too undersized. I didn't. He is a high motor, hard playing guy. And that usually translates to our level, like the guys who are too big and it's hard for them to move. They're kind of slow plotters. It's hard for them to play in our league. It just is. It is a guard, wing-oriented league that's really up and down. So Jade's perfect for that. We have another one, Jaquarius Patterson, who is also from South Carolina, played for one of the best high school coaches in America, Keith Arrington. Small town kid, but has a ton of upside. I think he's still growing height-wise. Just turned 18, younger, but has been really key for us. And then I have a few more, but I'm only going to say one. Elijah Mitchell is probably our number 3 leading scorer, I think, right now. Elijah's a little different because he went to prep school. And so for us, that's big, the fact that he's been away from home before, so he understands what it's like trying to live on your own. But he's originally from Roanoke, Virginia, and is an old man in a young man's body. He is probably the most energized, most, I'd say, everyday freshman I've ever had. Haven't really had to coach him really on anything. He asks questions, but just from a leadership standpoint, he brings it every single day. And he's a guy that as a freshman and that has a chance to leave here after 1 year, that's exactly how you do it. So I think for anybody on our team who is trying to see how to do things, just watch Elijah and do what he does, and you'll be in a pretty good shape to do that, in my opinion.
I wish I was an old man in a young body. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
All right, so you've described your team overall, brand new guys. You've done a lot to figure out the fit and their cohesiveness and gelling as a team. So with that, what's your brand of basketball with these guys?
And that's, I think as a head coach, my main job is how do we win the game? So how do we have to play that game in order to win the game? And we're very flexible with that. If we have to go smaller in that game, if we have to go slower in that game, we will. So to answer your question, it's kind of hard to answer that depending on the opponent.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a few things. We're going to play up tempo. We're going to push the basketball. I believe in transition offense, attacking transition defense. We drill that every single day. I have a background as a defensive guy. That's how I got the Panola job. That's how I probably got this job. But our group's been a little slower trying to learn that part. Now, right before the Christmas break, I really believe that we kind of understood the urgency that you have to have on that side of the ball in our league. So our group's going to get after it on defense. We're going to try to guard the three-point line as best we can, and just going to try to compete. You know, we pride ourselves on kills, which are 3 stops in a row on the defensive end. We try to out rebound the other team. You know, that's a big point of emphasis, and we try to win the turnover battle against their team. So that's kind of 3 things like that we always try to highlight each and every game on how we play.
And each and every game there's always adjustments that are made. It's players' playing time can be adjusted as well, because you might be counting on somebody to be in the paint, so to speak, and be a big rebounder, but for some odd reason tonight they aren't. But that 6th or 7th player that you're pulling off the bench is having a big night, so you're going with him a little more. So,
and I think our team has a whole lot of depth, so I think that's a big strength for us. You know, right now we are playing 13 kids, but that's a lot. Mm-hmm. Usually that shrinks up a little bit, okay. But I always tell my team this. You know, we're going to play however we got to play to win, and I think as a coach you have a responsibility to do that. We're not just going to hard hedge ball screens because that's what we do. That's what we do. I'm not changing. You know, that's who we are. Well, if your team can't hard hedge ball screens, then you should probably adapt. So we like to adapt on things, and each game's completely different. But as far as a preparation standpoint, I think we do a great job with that.
Well, talking about your adapting and your team and that kind of thing, let's talk a little bit about the conference in general. You got 12 teams in it. I'm going to quickly go over just the conference standings up to this point in conference play. You mentioned that we are one of the top 3 regions in the nation, and we've got 2 of those teams ranked in the top 10 in the national rankings, TVCC and Panola. TVCC is number 3 in the nation. Panola is number 7. They are at 3-1 in conference play. TJC and Angelina are also 3-1, and then the 2-2 teams, a cluster. We're at the top at 2-2, along with Lee, Bossier Parish, Blinn, and Paris College. So, Coach, give us a little rundown of that grouping there.
Yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, it's a really deep league, and I truly believe that, the fact that we are one of the 3 best leagues in the country. And I think the difference between our leagues and other leagues is we have a hard bottom of our league. And usually leagues, you have a couple guys that you know are going to be wins. In our league, you really don't. You really don't. And I think at the end of the year, you will kind of see that in the standings. I think you'll see it. If you watch other sports, you know, we are kind of like the SEC West and collegiate football. That's kind of what we are. We're the Ole Misses, the A&Ms, the LSU, the Alabama, the Auburn, the Texases. We're going to eat each other alive. And I know that it's every team's goal to get to Hutch. And like I said, we've sent 3 teams, I believe, 3 times in my 9 years, which is unbelievable. And I hope the new schedule doesn't hurt with that. But I think at the end of the day, like, you got to win your home games. I think it's a big part of it. It's hard to win on the road in this league. It just is. I mean, you have to be really good and mature to win on the road in this league. But I think we're right there. And we've won our 2 home games so far in conference. A big part of that is the energy in that building, especially during the week. It's one of the best home floor atmospheres in the whole league. That's a big reason why, we use that in recruiting and everything. It's just a big part of it. But I think, too, Trinity Valley, Panola are 3-1. So that group that is 2-2 is just 1 game behind. And I don't know if you're going to have a group that goes completely unscathed through conference without any bumps and bruises. I mean, everybody's going to have injuries. Everybody's going to have, like a whole bunch of adversity. It's going to be about like who can respond to that adversity and who has the depth in order to play that hard slate of games. Usually we play 19 conference games. Our league changed the format, and we're playing 22 conference games now. That may seem like a little slight adjustment, but it's really not. It's a huge adjustment because you are now playing everybody home and away. And there's an old saying that it's hard to beat a team twice, and that's true. That is absolutely true. So everybody's playing the exact same slate. Okay, there's not any adjustments. We play 2 top 8 teams straight back to back. So I don't know if that's quite equal to everybody else, but it's part of it. You got to play the games on the schedule. But our league's really, really tough. It has a rich history, tradition. Coaches like, Coach Orr, Coach Estelle, Coach Spencer. I mean, just some really Hall of Fame coaches have worked in our league. So, it's a highly recruited league. I think like each and every year, I think we average, 12 plus D1 players every year from our conference. It's heavily recruited, and I think the big thing for us is we're just trying to play our best brand of basketball in March. Like, that's what we're trying to get to, and we're not doing that yet. It's early. We're close. I like the direction that we're heading, but I think any good coach, his group should be graded on how they improve. Yes. And we're going to try to get, one of the buys at the regional tournament, which I believe is huge. I've had the bye before. I have not had the bye before, and I think the bye is a big advantage, just like analytically. I mean, you have to win 3 as opposed to 4. It's a big difference. Especially with 18-year-old kids. It just is a big difference. So we're trying to get one of those buys, and that's our goal. And I think if we stay healthy, if we keep improving, then I think we're going to be there at the end of the day. I really do.
Well, getting one of those buys begins today. You've got a 4 o'clock matchup with Lamar State College. Tell us a little bit about the requirements it's going to take in order to win this game.
Yeah, I have been a head coach, like you said, for 9 years. But I still don't have an answer about how to prepare your team after 3 weeks off.
Yes.
Each group's completely different. There's been groups that you have to reteach everything from the ground floor up, and I mean everything. And then you have groups where you just have to condition, and that's really it. And they remember everything. So, how does our group, respond from that break? And as a coach, I think the thing that lets you sleep at night is the whole conference has that break. It's not just you. So, it's 2 completely different seasons. And I mean that. It is two completely different seasons. I've had players who have played a very small role early on in the fall, and then by the end of the spring, they're, all league players. I've had that happen before. So we're going to have some guys emerge from that who are going to play larger roles. I think, you can't turn the ball over, and it's a huge part of having 3 weeks off. We got to make the easy play. And I think it all comes down like to defense. We got to get defensive stops, and we have to guard the three-point line. I think that's kind of three things that we talk about every single night. And how do we play to win the game? What's our scout? What's our philosophy? What's the pace that we have to play at? How do we take away their strengths? At the end of the day, we want them to play left-handed, and that's what we're trying to do. So how do we do that? What's our ball screen coverage? And then how do you prepare for the game? What do you do the evening before? What do you do for shoot around? So our group's been pretty mature with that. We've had one game this year where we just weren't in the building, and that happens a couple times a year. Hopefully it doesn't happen in league play, but it's going to happen again. And what we try to hammer home is that you control your attitude and your effort every single night. And we can't control if we hit threes or free throws. We can control how we guard and how hard we play. And I think before the break, we were slowly getting that message across. And hopefully they remember that message, and hopefully we don't have to start back from ground zero. But I think that's the keys for today.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you sharing all the intricate details to a basketball program. It's more than just rolling the balls out, chunking them out there. All right, guys, let's go to work. There's a lot more to it, and I think you've got a great plan, and it's showing by the type of players you recruit, the way they act on campus, on the court, in the community, and also their grades as well. You guys are doing a great job, and we appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all the support.
The Woolens Special Events Center is hosting the game, 4 p.m. Lamar State College is coming to town. If you have a chance, get away from your house, come watch a good brand of basketball. The Dogs need that home cooking, so to speak. The gym's been very, very nice to them. They're undefeated there at the gym, and we need to keep that roll going, and you are a big part of that. If not, stick here on our channel here, and just in a few minutes you will see the game live as it's streamed. So I'm your host, Richard Cotrera, and on behalf of Grant McMillan, we appreciate you joining us in the first installment of In the Paint, and we'll see you next go-round. Go Dogs!